Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I'm Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of In the Field by Sadiqa de Meijer, and I apologize if I'm saying that entirely wrong, by Palimpsest Press. This is a nonfiction. It's coming out October 15th, 2025. I received this review copy from River Street Writing in exchange for a fair review, so thank you so much. An interesting and thoughtful collection of small memoir-esque essays. In the Field is a clever title, as almost all the essays revolve around fields in the literal, professional, or artistic sense. What is it about? This follow-up to the Governor General's award-winning Alphabet brings us essays that move searchingly through their central questions. What meaning does a birthplace hold? What drives us to make contact with a work of art? How do we honor the remains of the dead? This writing constitutes a form of fieldwork grounded in intimate observation. In the Field is an extraordinary book, one that invites readers to bring renewed attention to their own lives and to embrace the subjectivity in the experiences of others. So I have not read the author's previous work, but I didn't need to in order to understand this collection. It features 9 short pieces, all of which are deep dives into the author's, I'm presuming, given this is nonfiction, real-life experiences, but in a way that brings you in rather than telling you something. Some nonfiction is more about imparting information or sharing a worldview, and there are some, like this one, which use anecdotal experiences as a way to encourage thought. I found all these essays interesting, though some grabbed me more than others. There is one about her job as a doctor, which wasn't really my interest. I'm just not into medical stuff. Or the one about Amsterdam, as I've never been there, so a lot of it was just like over my head. I don't know what that is. I don't know what she's talking about, which is fine. But there were others that I could relate to on a more personal level, and at least in some aspects, I found really entrancing. And it's not like the couple that weren't to my interest were poorly written or something. It's just a subject matter taste thing. The author has a lovely narrative voice that makes the collection easy to follow, and her points or the questions that she's asked are raised in a way that is easy to understand and easy to engage with. What's interesting is that she might be raising points that I wasn't entirely on board with, but it felt more like a discussion than anything. In that, while my opinion still stood at the end of it, I understood her viewpoint. It was like having an actual conversation with someone and not just arguing online or tuning one another out and talking to an echo chamber. It was really, really interesting. For example, the first story deals with reinterment, which is about, when cemeteries get full, cities tend to just dig up the old bones and chuck them out or put them in a smaller shared grave. What's a funny coincidence is that I had never considered what happened to full cemeteries until a few weeks ago when I looked it up. We were driving by one near my parents-in-law's house, and I was like, what happened? I think I was asking like a morbid question, like, are your parents going to be buried there? And he was like, I think so. And I was like, what happens when the graves get full? And he's like, I don't know. And I was like, I've never thought about that. So I went on my phone and I looked it up and I realized that reinterment is a thing. So if you weren't aware about that, I'm not sure how common that is. That this happens all the time. So the author talks about this, and where she and I differ is that, and I'm totally not invalidating her viewpoint, I understand this is a personal opinion, is that she considers it somewhat upsetting that someone's bones could be transplanted and finds it disheartening that the ancestral bones held no apparent meaning. Where myself, I believe that ancestral bones don't hold any meaning. Honestly, I think burials in general are weird, and cemeteries are a waste of land that could be used for farming or just like left as a forest or a field. When I die, I want my body, rendered down to soil, and then the soil put in the ground and a tree planted in it. Then if people want to visit my old flesh, they are at least out in nature, and not just like taking up space with my body in a box. Like, I don't know. I'm not a grave visitor person. To me, a person is not their body, so when they are dead, they're gone. But again, that's my opinion, that's my belief, or whatever it is, and I understand that people may not share that, and it was just really interesting to read someone else's perspective on that, and I understood why. I understood why she was concerned about this, because put from her emotions and her opinions and stuff, she did find it upsetting that I think it was her great grandfather or something, someone's bones were they were discussing what to do with them, and I guess she felt uneasy that people were like, yeah, we don't want to pay to keep it in a regular grave, just throw it in with the other ones. And so I don't know, I think it's a very personal thing, and I just think it's an interesting, and it's also a really important thing to talk about because cemeteries do take up a lot of space. So anyway. There was another essay that I was actually super on board with that talked about like embroidery and the reasons people do it, and as well as how the existence of it, because it takes time and effort, shows a real devotion to making something beautiful. I think a lot of the time we think crafts are to keep kids entertained, but really anything you do with your hands that requires concentration and you find kind of relaxing or rewarding, art for art's sake basically, is a very human thing. As my therapist says, my paint by number that I do them like, it takes me about 6 months to do one of them. I do the really big ones that have like very like thousands and thousands of tiny little, colors. Yeah, she says it's like actually kind of like my form of meditation. So I was like, yeah, okay, thank you for validating my weird hobby. The essay doesn't actually talk about most of what I just said, but this is just an example of how these essays are designed to make you think and extrapolate, and clearly they do that. Anyway, this is a wonderful little collection. My favorite sections were found in the field and after Eddie, though the last one was less of like a favorite in terms of like enjoyment and more of an absolutely devastating piece that was incredibly heartbreaking to read and was just really exceptionally well done. So thank you again to River Street Reads for the review copy. I really appreciate it. And yeah, it's also a really pretty cover. I really like the watercolor on here. So thank you.